The Feral Judgement. The sun hung low and bloated in the hazy sky, its sickly orange glow barely penetrating the thick smog that blanketed the town of Hope's End. Dr. Gita Sharma squinted through the haze, her eyes watering from the acrid air that seeped through even the best filtration masks. The constant taste of ash and chemicals on her tongue was a bitter reminder of humanity's folly. She stood at the edge of the rewilding zone, the shimmering barrier before her humming with an energy that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. Beyond it lay their last hope, a desperate attempt to let nature heal itself, and perhaps, in turn, heal them. Gita's hand unconsciously moved to the locket at her neck, a relic from a greener world. Inside was a pressed flower, a real one, not the synthetic imitations that passed for nature these days. The weight of it against her chest was a constant reminder of what they'd lost and what they were fighting to regain. Gita's mind wandered to the early days of the Rewilding Project, when hope still outweighed desperation. The plan had been audacious, to cordon off vast swaths of the planet, seeding them with genetically enhanced flora designed to accelerate carbon sequestration and detoxify the soil. They had created hybrid species, combining the resilience of extremophiles with the rapid growth of invasive plants. Drones had scattered billions of seeds, while underground, a network of engineered fungi worked to restore the mycelial networks that once knitted ecosystems together. But they had underestimated the extent of the damage. Centuries of pollution, deforestation, and climate change had pushed the environment past numerous tipping points. The oceans, acidified and choked with plastic, could no longer support the phytoplankton that once produced much of Earth's oxygen. Vast dead zones spread across the seas, while on land, topsoil erosion and desertification rendered once fertile regions barren. The air itself had become a hazard, thick with particulates and noxious gases that defied even the most advanced filtration systems. Cancer rates had skyrocketed, while new respiratory diseases emerged faster than treatments could be developed. Children born in the last decades had never known a world where the sky was truly blue or where one could breathe freely outside. It was in this context that the Rewilding Project had been launched, a last-ditch effort to let nature heal itself, and by extension, heal humanity. The vast energy fields that now separated the rewilding zones from human habitation were powered by what remained of the world's renewable energy infrastructure, a final investment of resources in the hope of a livable future. Gita sighed, her breath fogging her mask. The project had been underway for nearly a decade now, and while satellite imagery showed promising signs of green returning to the quarantined areas, the world outside remained as bleak as ever. And now, with the appearance of creatures long thought extinct, it seemed that nature had plans of its own. Another day in paradise, Doc. The gruff voice of Rajesh, the perimeter guard, broke through her reverie. His laugh turned into a hacking cough, a sound as common as birdsong once was. Gita turned, offering a wry smile hidden behind her mask. At least the view never changes, Rajesh. Ain't that the truth? He wheezed, gesturing towards the desolate landscape beyond the barrier. Sometimes I wonder what's really going on in there. Nature healing itself, or just finishing what we started? Gita's reply was cut short by the crackle of her communit. Dr. Sharma, came the urgent voice of her assistant. We've got a situation at the main gate, a knot formed in Gita's stomach. In Hope's End, a situation was never good news. On my way, she replied, giving Rajesh a nod before turning back towards town. The streets of Hope's End were a graveyard of human ambition. Skeletal structures of once proud skyscrapers loomed overhead, their windows long shattered, frames rusted and crumbling. The few people Gita passed were hunched figures, their eyes downcast, shoulders bowed under the weight of survival in this harsh new world. The scrape of her boots against the gritty ground seemed obscenely loud in the eerie quiet. As she approached the main gate, the crowd's murmuring grew louder, an unusual sound in a town where most tried to conserve their breath. At the center stood a boy, no more than 12, his clothes torn and muddy. Blood trickled from a gash on his forehead, the metallic scent cutting through the omnipresent odor of decay. Gita's heart sank as she recognized him. Arjun. She knelt down, ignoring the bite of debris through her worn suit. What happened? Where's your sister? Arjun's eyes, wide with terror, met hers. His voice cracked as he spoke. We went into the zone. To play. We heard something big. It took her. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Gita felt the fear like a physical wave, threatening to knock her off balance. She stood slowly, her mind racing. You did what? A woman pushed through the crowd, her face a mask of terror and fury. I told you never to go near that place. I'm sorry, Mom, Arjun sobbed, his small frame shaking. We just wanted to see real trees. The raw desperation in the boy's voice struck Gita like a physical blow. How long had it been since any of them had seen a real tree? The thought was cut short as her team arrived, faces grim behind their masks. Emergency meeting, Gita ordered, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. Now, the research hub was a sterile oasis amidst the decay of Hope's End. As the team settled around the hollow table, the air thrummed with tension. Suddenly, a sound penetrated the supposedly soundproof walls, a howl, low and mournful at first, then rising to a spine-chilling crescendo. Dr. Vikram Mehta, the team's zoologist, paled visibly. That's impossible, he whispered, his words barely audible over the hum of the hub's air filtration system. Gita leaned forward, her palms pressed against the cool surface of the hollow table. What is it, Vikram? He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing visibly. Dire wolves, but they've been extinct for thousands of years. The room erupted in a cacophony of disbelief and fear. Gita closed her eyes, feeling the vibrations of panic through the table. When she opened them, her gaze was still. Quiet. Her voice cut through the noise like a knife. As silence fell, she activated the hollow display. An image flickered to life. A massive wolf-like creature with powerful jaws and eyes that seemed to glow with an ancient intelligence. Vikram, his voice shaking slightly, began to explain. Canis dirus, larger and more robust than modern wolves. Apex predators during the Pleistocene epoch, but they died out with most of the megafauna about 13,000 years ago. The howl came again, closer this time. Gita felt it in her bones, a primal sound that awoke something deep and forgotten in her DNA. Dr. Isha Patel, the project's geneticist, slammed her hand on the table. "How is this possible?" she demanded, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "We didn't include any dire wolf DNA in the rewilding sequences. We couldn't have. It doesn't exist anymore." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared. Red emergency lights bathed the room in a hellish glow, casting long, twisted shadows. "Perimeter breach," the AI announced with maddening calm. "Unknown entity has entered the town limits." Gita's mind raced. A little girl was out there, alone and afraid. And now, something that shouldn't exist had found its way into what was left of their world. The air in the room felt electric, charged with fear and the unknown. "We need to find her," Gita said, her voice cutting through the panic. "And we need to understand what's happening in the zone." As they geared up, trank guns, portable force fields, emergency medkits, Gita caught her reflection in a darkened screen. The woman staring back at her looked older, wearier than she remembered. When had that happened? She shook off the thought. There was no time for introspection now. They moved through the empty streets, the eerie silence broken only by the soft beep of their tracking devices and the distant, haunting howls. The town felt different now, every shadow a potential hiding place for ancient predators. The air was thick with fog, limiting visibility and adding to the sense of claustrophobia. Every breath felt heavy, laden with moisture and the ever-present pollutants. "Stay close," Gita murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "And stay alert." They found the girl in the old park, a place that had once been filled with laughter and life, now a graveyard of rusted metal and cracked plastic. She was huddled beneath the twisted remains of a play structure, rust flaking off the metal frame, leaving reddish-brown stains on her torn clothing. But she wasn't alone. Standing over her, massive and terrifying in its primeval majesty, was a dire wolf. Its fur was a mottled grey, its eyes a burning amber that seemed to hold the wisdom of eons. The air filled with a musky, wild scent, not the stench of decay they were used to, but something vital and alive. It made Gita's nostrils flare, awakening some long-dormant part of her brain that recognized predator and danger. Gita raised her trank gun, the weight of it reassuring in her trembling hands. But something made her hesitate. The wolf wasn't attacking. It stood protectively over the girl, its hackles raised not at her, but at the approaching humans. And then, in a moment of clarity that hit her like a physical blow, Gita understood. "It's protecting her," she breathed, her words fogging her mask. "From us." The dire wolf's gaze met hers, and in those ancient eyes, Gita saw not mindless aggression, but judgment. This creature, this impossible survivor of a bygone age, remembered a world before humans had poisoned the air and scorched the earth. It remembered, and it found humanity wanting. With agonizing slowness, Gita lowered her weapon. She took a step forward, then another, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. The dire wolf watched her, its muscles tensed and ready. She could hear its breathing, deep and steady, a contrast to her own rapid, shallow breaths. "It's okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're not going to hurt her. Or you." For a long moment, nothing moved. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a grace that belied its size, the dire wolf stepped aside. Gah rushed forward, scooping the girl into her arms. The child's body was warm against her, trembling slightly, her breath coming in short gasps. "It's all right," Gita murmured, stroking the girl's matted hair. "You're safe now." As she turned back to her team, she saw the wolf retreating, its massive form melting into the shadows, but she could feel its eyes on them, watching, judging. The howls started again as they made their way back to the research hub. They sounded different now. Not threatening, but mournful. A lament for a world lost, and a warning for the future. Inside the hub, as the little girl was reunited with her brother and mother, their sobs of relief echoing in the sterile room, Gita stood at the window. She watched the boundary of the rewilding zone, shimmering in the distance like a mirage. "What do we do now?" Dr. Mehta asked, coming to stand beside her. His voice was low, tinged with a mixture of awe and fear. Gita pressed her hand against the cool glass, feeling the vibration of the hub systems through her palm. She thought of the dire wolf's eyes, of the judgment she'd seen there, of Arjun's desperate wish to see a real tree, of the locket against her chest, holding a fragile reminder of a world long gone. "We adapt," she said simply. "We learn. We find a way to coexist." She turned to face her team, seeing the fear in their eyes, but also a glimmer of something else. Hope, perhaps, or determination. "We've been given a second chance, a chance to do things right this time." They had thought they were saving the world, giving nature a chance to heal itself. But now she understood the terrible truth. Nature didn't need saving. It was humanity that stood on the brink, and the earth, in its infinite wisdom, had called forth its ancient guardians to pass judgment. As night fell and the howls of the dire wolves echoed through the dying town, Gita Sharma knew that everything had changed. The real work of rewilding, of finding a way for humanity to coexist with the natural world, was just beginning, and failure was not an option. For in the eyes of the dire wolf, she had seen their future. Adapt or perish. The choice was theirs. The last rays of the sickly sun disappeared behind the horizon, plunging hope's end into darkness. But for the first time in years, Gita felt a flicker of something she had almost forgotten: true hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, but also, perhaps, a chance for redemption. As she turned away from the window, the distant howl of a dire wolf echoed through the night. A reminder and a promise. The world was changing once again, and this time humanity would have to change with it. Gita's hand went to her locket, feeling the shape of the pressed flower within. "We'll make it right," she whispered, a promise to the past and a hope for the future. "This time, we'll make it right."